Welcome back, everyone, to the Baklava broadcast brought to you by Semih Pro. We are recording this on a Sunday night, a little out of the ordinary given our technical troubles. I guess yesterday we started doing it and didn't work out so well, and so this should turn out hopefully better than what we had yesterday. But anyway, this will be actually the second part of our podcast for this week. Actually, the first podcast part was recorded yesterday, and a sneak peek into that, it involved a special guest, which will be unnamed for the moment. You'll have to tune into our podcast to find out who we interviewed, and make sure to tune into that once we record it and post it on our site, hopefully tomorrow night. So look out for that. Anyway, I am once again joined by our two podcast friends, Rahul, who just got done teaching a SAT class. What was the word of the day, Rahul?
The word of the day was Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was actually
That'll definitely
words.
show up.
Yeah,
that'll definitely show up on the SAT. Nice.
I don't want to give anything.
And then,
yeah, you should study that.
Yeah, and then we also have Kurt Russell, the famous movie star, with us in Houston.
I haven't heard that one before.
Kurt was actually recently called up to have a part in the Houston Rockets starting lineup now that Dwight Howard has been sidelined with a injury to his ankle. So I think they're hurting at that front court position. So I gave Kurt a call, and Kurt, what'd you tell him?
I told him I'd be willing to do it, but I don't want any part of his enormous salary. So you'll probably see me
Nice.
on national TV soon. No big deal.
Yikes! I think that means he's gonna rob a bank or something. So what are we talking about today, J-Rod?
Yeah, so I think we got to start off first and foremost with the Cleveland Cavaliers and their success in this past week. I guess specifically, we can start out with the nationally televised game for today, the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, which went pretty well for us as we continued to our winning ways. So I guess, Rahul, to kick us off, you actually, if you recall from last podcast, Rahul, you actually correctly predicted that 4-0 record. So, hats off to you, and Nuggies off to you as well, too,
I definitely recall it. Don't worry about that. I definitely recall that. I also recall you guys laughing at me when I said it. So those nuggies are going to taste real good. I can't wait for those. But I'm sure we're all happy about it, though, because the Cavs going 4-0, I guess 5-0 now with the OKC win, is exactly what we needed. And obviously I think LeBron, we talked about this before, but off really helped him. I think the big difference for the Cavs is the new guys, and then in particular Timofey Mozgov. It's just his presence is just so noticeable on the court, and I think starting with that game against the Bulls, Pau Gasol went, I think, 3 of 11 against the Cavs, and Mozgov was guarding him most of the time. And then even up till today, Kendrick Perkins, we all know what a beast he can be out there, but he he just couldn't do anything against Mozgov. And even at the beginning, Kevin Durant really struggled to find his rhythm, and I think part of that is Mozgov. So I think the new guys are a big part of the success. J.R. Smith, he is a bit of a chucker. He threw up some, I'd say some questionable shots today, but he's been making a lot of them. And he's got that swagger that I think the Cavs were lacking as a team before. But it looks like the Cavs are actually starting to have some fun now, which we didn't see before. So that's my take on it. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, the new guys, not only have they brought valuable minutes to the team and definitely necessary depth, but there's been some articles coming out detail the roster that was originally put together at the start of the season. People are pretty excited, let's be honest, and things that weren't going as well as expected. And internally, the team realized that they were lacking depth and talent in certain positions and realized that they really weren't good enough this year to win it all, which obviously when you get 3 big names on a roster like that, the goal is to win it all. So that's pretty deflating given the high expectations. And I think this faith has been renewed in the roster by adding, like Rahul said, J.R. Smith, he can be a bit of a basket case, but he's a guy that can definitely win you games on his own when he's feeling it, and he can also lose you games. And Mozgov, very solid interior presence to replace Verja when he went down. And Shumpert, it's nice that hopefully we can ease him back into playing after his shoulder injury, and hopefully he can be an elite defensive presence as a wingman. So I think just faith restored in the team, realizing that they do have what it takes to be a contender this year.
Yeah, bring up some good points with the new guys and the new look of the team in a sense with LeBron and a lot of the blame early on was on David Blatt, and I kind of like with those details of those reports that came out. Pretty much the players said that it wasn't really Blatt's fault. Like you can't put him at fault for some of the things that happened in the first 35, 40 games. It was more of the players and their attitude and how they felt. They couldn't reel off these winning streaks, and they didn't feel like they had the teams. They didn't have the faith to have this team have the talent and the necessary players to be able to win a championship, which everyone in Cleveland is expecting right away.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't help when Brian Windhorst is also making up articles every 3 days about how he has David Blatt. So
yeah, Semih Pro does not support the efforts of Brian Windhorst. We made that clear. We will not follow him on Twitter. We will not endorse any of his work.
He's probably listening right now, so upset. He probably sat down to listen to the podcast, and then he just hears this.
Yeah, he's probably just gonna go eat some donuts or something.
That's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, enough hate on Windhorst, I guess. Yeah, so I guess these last 5 games, they've been pretty promising to see, and in those first 3 or 4, it seemed like Kevin Love wasn't really going to be involved too much, and I don't know if that was seen as concerning that he's not involved and we gave up so much for him, or if it was more of like a good sign that we could win without him contributing too much. But it was good to see him today. He was able to knock down some threes and work his way into the game and everything. So I guess that's good to see, everyone do that. So, yeah, Rahul, you got something?
Yeah. As far as Kevin Love goes, I'd say it's not concerning for Kevin Love as a player. I think it's more concerning for the rest of the team, not involving a player of his caliber. I think that, you know, the fact that he scores 9 points against, against Charlotte 2 days ago, that just can't happen.
Yeah.
That's not all right, especially when everybody's having all that fun, and it seems like they still can't get Kevin Love involved. So I think eventually it's an issue that needs to be addressed. But, yeah, it's good. I mean, we're good for now, but something we should address.
Well, speaking of things that we need to address, there have been some rumors about LeBron still actively recruiting Ray Allen, and also talk about the Cavs trying to acquire a backup point guard to eclipse Matthew Dellavedova on the depth chart. Johnny, what do you have? Do you have any inside info on that? Any thoughts about Ray or backup point guard?
Yeah, it seems, you know, reading the rumors and everything about Ray Allen that he's kind of content with, you know, joining a team right before the playoff run. He's not in any rush to hurry back to a team. But, yeah, I mean, he has all the leverage. He can go to pretty much any team that he wants. You know, obviously all the contenders would be interested in what he brings to the table, which is, you know, lights out 3-point shooter that, you know, we've seen has been clutch in the playoffs and everything. So, yeah, I feel playing Ray Allen over like a James Jones or even like Mike Miller would be an upgrade. And, yeah, hopefully LeBron can lure him in. I think that would be a nice addition, you know, another veteran presence. And then as far as the backup point guard play, you know, I've expressed my thoughts about Dellavedova in the last podcast. He's been doing okay these last few games, I guess. I mean, it's tough to evaluate him when we're up like 35 or 40 on a team, but there's actually been rumors. There's actually been rumors recently, like Hoops Hype and other rumors that say we might be targeting someone in the Chinese leagues because their season ends actually in like close to March. So there's some former NBA point guards. I think like Will Bynum, who had a short time with the Pistons, was one of interest. Which I'm not sure if how much of an upgrade he would be, honestly, to Dellavedova. So I guess that'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what other names get floated around. But yeah, I think the front office is doing a good job, you know, actively looking at how we can improve the roster and are given our best chances to win the championship this year. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I think not only would someone from the Chinese league probably not be an upgrade, but if you're getting someone at the end of the season, at the end of their season, and then you ask them to play, 50 more games, including playoffs, I just don't see how that's going to be much of an upgrade at all. I think out of the three of us, I'm probably the biggest Dellavedova fan. Obviously, he's not going to score, but he does do some things on defense. He does hound people, and he's got kind of that defensive mentality, which you kind of need on maybe a more offensive-oriented team like this. So yeah, I could see us getting an upgrade at point guard, maybe even like a Nate Robinson type player. But if we don't, I won't be the most upset guy about it. As far as Ray Allen, Ray Allen's a Hall of Famer. He's a great player, so I'd be crazy to say we don't want him. So if he wants to come to Cleveland, that's solid. But I guess the question, I'll pose it at Kurt. If we get Ray Allen, say, whose minutes is he going to take? Because guys like James Jones and Mike Miller, they don't really play anymore. And I don't see Shumpert or J.R. Smith being too happy about losing minutes. So if we got Ray Allen, what do you think that would turn out to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I agree. I don't really see him playing a whole lot. I think it would be good to bring him in, actually not necessarily just to play, but kind of in like a Juwan Howard role. God forbid, Juwan Howard, but just, Ray is well known for just being, the ultimate professional, the guy that works ridiculously hard. First one in the gym, last one out, has had a long career. So I think if anything, one, it's good to have him just so that no one else can have him that could actually probably use him in his minutes. But two, I think he just sets, and we have an interesting mix of veterans and young guys, but I think he just would set a great example for some younger guys, and hopefully can help develop some of our younger players into guys that, you can find a routine for them and help them improve a lot. And then, in the playoffs, that's kind of the thing the Heat had. They have a bunch of three-point shooters, and when one of them's cold, they just plug another guy in. And
that's
usually
true.
one of them ends up being hot. So, and at that point, if James Jones is always hot, but if Mike Miller does his usual thing and gets injured and can barely walk around, and we're struggling from three, I think it's just good to at least be able to rely upon him. If all else fails, at least how we have one of the best three-point shooters of all time on our bench, even if he's old. And he could be like a last resort kind of guy behind Miller and Jones and Shumpert. So that's pretty much my take. You can't really turn a guy down like that, and I'm sure that Blatt would be able to find some sort of role for him, whether or not it involves playing a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. So back to today's game. We talked about it a little bit, but did you guys watch today's game?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your guys' takeaway from it? What'd you like? What'd you not like? Or what made you happy?
Well, for one thing, I didn't like it is Kendrick Perkins. That guy drives me nuts. He's like the biggest rat. He's so dirty. He had that brutal screen on JR, which I guess was kind of the team's fault for not calling it out. But
yeah,
I could see why a lot of players would just hate playing against him. But no, it was pretty interesting. Kyrie was incredibly passive in the first quarter. Didn't really do a whole lot. We were still doing fine, and then it kind of just turned into, it was pretty much the LeBron show in the first half.
Yeah.
He kind of took over, which was nice to see. He just blew by Anthony Morrow kind of whenever he wanted to. But I think this game was more about, it's interesting because the way that Oklahoma City plays, I said recently that that's kind of how the Cavs played, which, we're adapting and changing, which is good. But the way that OKC played today was just a lot of that isolation game. Russ went 7 for 26, and De'Aaron went 5 for 15. Majority of their shots were jump shots. Ibaka was 6 for 16, which is also bad. But just a lot. It's really hard to win consistently when you're a jump shooting team. So it's really nice to have LeBron and Kyrie with their ability to get to the rim, and even JR, especially when his long-range shots are falling, kind of opens up his ability to drive and kick or drive and get to the bucket. So it's nice to see that we're adapting a little and kind of falling away from the isolation / jump shooting team. So I think that's good.
Yeah. The thing that you said that made me the happiest was Dion Waiters going 5 for 15. That's what I like to see. There he is. I thought it was great too. When LeBron was guarding Dion, I'm like, there's no way this dude's scoring a point right now. Actually, I don't think LeBron guarded Durant for the whole game, right? Was there any point where he guarded Durant?
It was a lot of J.R. Smith guarding Durant for whatever reason.
Yeah. I'd probably just, I don't know.
But
yeah. Probably just so LeBron can focus on the offensive end. But, yeah, Kendrick Perkins was a really dirty player today. That hit on that Mozgov hit.
yeah,
Mozgov, that was, right in the dome. So, like, I think the Cavs were lucky that Steven Adams had a headache or whatever because Kendra is just so bad. But,
yeah.
I think OKC, some of their troubles, like some games, they look really bad. They're a really good team. They're like a really good team. But some of the games, you're right, they look like jump shooters, like 5 different guys just shooting jump shots. And I'm starting to think that Scott Brooks isn't the best coach at all. Like, I don't know.
You're just starting to think that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm behind the times, but, like, it just seems weird because, like, he's been around for, like, 7 years. So, like, you think...
And he played for the Cavs. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, for, like, 40 games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess I'm behind on it, but Scott Brooks, man, I don't know what he's doing. He's not doing much. J-Rod, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just some quick thoughts. Yeah, it was nice to see Dion struggle, obviously, and then then it was good to see that. We hit 16 3-pointers, which is good to see that, and then we rebounded pretty well as well. I mean, Tristan had 16 rebounds, so him and Mozgov on the offensive glass really helps, extend those possessions. And I feel like our defense in these last 4 games, we've held our opponents under 100 points each time, so that's good to see. And then, LeBron kind of said afterward that, the defense pretty much, helps the offense run and, kind of sparks that offense. So if we continue to defend like we are, then, the offense becomes a lot easier. We get those turnovers and we get easy baskets in transition, and I think that's one of the most dangerous is in transition and getting out and running and, playing at a good pace. So, yeah, it was good to see this. Overall, it was a good game to watch, and good to see LeBron. I mean, he's averaging now like 30 points in his last 7 games, so he's just been, attacking much more and getting back to, like, his former self. So, yeah, it was good to see Cavs get the victory over the Thunder today.
Yeah, I think building upon that, it's always good to look in the future and see who we have coming up. So our next 4 games that are that are occurring over this next week, we are at Detroit, who recently had some unfortunate news with Brandon Jennings and his torn Achilles. That's on NBA TV. Then we have 2 home games in a row against the Trailblazers and then against the Sacramento Queens. And then we are at Minnesota to finish out the week on Saturday. So, Rahul, do you care to give your prediction on those 4 games? Anything to look forward to?
Well, like these first 2 games coming up, Pistons and Trailblazers, would have been a lot tougher games if not for the injuries. Brandon Jennings going down for them for, I think, what is it? It's like at least 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, 6 to 9.
Yeah, that's terrible news, and especially for the Pistons, who are they're on a roll. I think Jennings had a game recently. It was like 21 points, 20 assists or something like that.
Yeah.
So that guy was making things go for them. I still think they have some good players. Drummond and Monroe and all those guys are going to make it a tough game. But I would expect us to hopefully pull this game off. And then it seems like we've started gaining that home court advantage again. So I don't know if LaMarcus Aldridge is going to play against us or not, but that game's at home. The Kings are at home. And then the Timberwolves away. I mean, it's the Timberwolves. So I would say at the very worst, we would go 3-1, but I think 4-0 should be the expectation. That's what we should be aiming for, one game at a time. J-Rod, what do you think, if we were to lose one of these games, what do you think the biggest trap game would be?
I think Portland poses the biggest threat for us. If Aldridge plays, and then obviously they have Lillard and a few other guys that can give us problems. But yeah, Detroit has some bigs that could give us problems too. But I think Mozgov can handle Drummond down low. So yeah, and then the Kings, they haven't been playing well lately. Actually, in our preview, they had the distinct title of the Steamer of the Week. They lost in a row. So
brought to you by Stanley Steamer.
Unless, yeah, barring like a Boogie Cousins 40-point, 25 rebound performance, I don't think the Kings really pose a threat. And then Minnesota, like you said, is Minnesota. So yeah, I see a 4-0. Hopefully, maybe 3-1 with Portland, but yeah, I'm leaning towards 4-0. Hopefully, so. Yeah, that's my take. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I agree with the Portland game being the toughest. I don't really know who on our team is going to be able to guard LaMarcus, again, assuming he plays. But we really, unless we throw LeBron on him, but then there's still a size discrepancy there. But, Kevin Love just has no chance against LaMarcus. And that he could go off for sure. But yeah, I think we'll probably go 3-1. I'm not sure which game we're gonna lose, but I would say it's either gonna be at Detroit or at home versus Portland. I'd probably lean towards at Detroit. I don't know why. I think they're bigs. We're gonna have trouble matching up against, but without Jennings, that team may crumble. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think we lucked out with our timing with, putting these teams that are facing a lot of injuries. And there's a lot of injuries going around the league right now, too. One of the most notable ones is Kobe Bryant, who could now be out for the season. What was his injury again? Sorry. It was something in the shoulder, right?
Torn right rotator cuff.
Rotator cuff, right. So, what do you guys think his next step is? If he's out for the season, should he just call it quits on his career, or should he try to play out the last year of his contract, or what? J-Rod?
Yeah, so I think he should retire, honestly. These last few years, he's just been injured, and he hasn't really played much, and when he hasn't been efficient. He hasn't been leading his team to wins. He hasn't really been helping his team. So, yeah, I personally feel he should retire, but he's probably not thinking that. He's going to play at least another year, I think. He wants another ring, which,
yeah,
I understand, but I don't think he has too much more to prove. Another ring would be nice, but you look at LA's situation, and, they have the money this off season, or rather maybe next, to possibly offer someone a max contract and such, but it's not going to take a year or two to build that up, I don't think. So yeah, I feel he should just retire and hang it up. Kurt, what do you think about Kobe and what he should do going forward?
Well, if I had one piece of advice for Kobe, I would say do not consult me when it comes to rehabbing torn rotator cuffs. Still haven't been able to figure that one out yet. It's only been, about 5 years since that happened. But, no, I actually agree. I can pretty much almost completely agree with Johnny in that he won't retire, but I think he should. I think he kind of knows that the team isn't going to win a championship in the next, several seasons before he's going to retire. So I think Kobe's just going to go out there, and if he gets injured again, right after he comes back from the rotator cuffs, assuming he comes back, then I think he'll probably hang it up. But for now, I think he kind of just likes going out there, realizing his team, they're not expected to do anything. So he kind of just deck up shots and try to score points and have a good time. He obviously doesn't like to lose, but expectations have been set pretty low there. Their over-under wins total for the year for Vegas was 31.5, so obviously that's not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think just to keep the dream alive, he'll keep playing and have some fun messing around.
Yeah. I think
anything to add?
Well, it depends who you're asking. If you're asking LA management, they're probably praying he retires. But as far as Kobe goes, even if he can't play next year, I still don't think he's going to retire because it's the same as the Steve Nash situation. He's got to get them checks, So he will sit there as a member of that team and not play if he can't play. But he's going to remain on that roster, and he's going to get paid $25 million to look pretty on the bench. So, yeah, I mean, also I think Kobe, he's got obviously this big legacy. So I think if at all possible, he's going to try to play a few games and end in that manner rather than ending because of an injury. But, yeah, as far as his effectiveness, I don't think he's got anything left to offer that team. So, What else we got? We talked about Aldridge, right? Aldridge is a weird situation because he hurt his hand. He was scheduled for surgery, but I guess a day later he decided that the pain wasn't bad enough and he was going to play through it. What do you guys think about that? And it was.
Yeah, I guess my take on it is, I mean, I guess he injured his thumb, and the initial report said he would be out like 6 to 9 weeks, I believe. But yeah, I don't know if playing through it is like the right move there, or like I don't know how much it's going to affect his play or his shooting or whatever. But yeah, I mean 6 to 9 weeks he would miss, I guess, all but like the last month of the season or so, and the stats with and without Aldridge, with him the Blazers are winning like 55, 56% of their games, and then without him they're like a 35% win team. So maybe he figures I don't know, like gut it out this season. Maybe without us we're gonna fall to like the 7th seed and then have to play like someone like really good in the first round or something, and maybe if I gut it out we can stick with like a 3 or 4 seed maybe. But I think still that they're still struggling right now as it is, even with him in the lineup. So it's just a classic Blazers like kind of regression in the second half of the season. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about his move to like kind of like just wait until the off season for it. But yeah, I think I'm finishing kind of lower playoff, like 6, 7 seed maybe in the West. I don't know.
I just don't understand why you would risk going into the playoffs and not being healthy. Like I think they could maintain a playoff seed without him, and it's most important that he's healthy for the playoffs, right? So if you're playing now, I think there's a good chance that you make the problem worse, and next thing you know, you can't play in the playoffs, or you're playing without a hand or a thumb or whatever because you decided to play a few games right now. I don't think it's worth it. But that's just my take.
Yeah, Rahul, actually, I pretty much feel the exact same way in that in the West, obviously in the first round, if you can get home court advantage, that would be key. But the teams are so even that, if you fall a few spots, it's not really going to, it's not like in the East where you're in the first round in your Atlanta, you're playing, either Charlotte or, you know, if you're the 4 seed, you're playing Chicago or Cleveland. You know, there's like a kind of a big drop-off after the first 4 or 5 teams in the East. West is pretty competitive throughout. So I think that to give themselves the best shot, if their goal is to advance several rounds in the playoffs, maybe make the finals, it may hurt, make the road harder if they lose some games and lose some seeding, considering that the 2 and 7 seed are separated by 3.5 games in the West. But if you go into the playoffs without LaMarcus fully healthy, then that team just has no shot. So I think he should try to get it right now as well. You know, maybe they don't make the playoffs this year. That's not the worst thing. That team's really not deep enough probably to make a substantial run anyway. So couldn't hurt if they fell a few spots and got a lottery pick. You never know. It can happen in the lottery. That's the Cavs, so.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch that play out for sure.
Mhm. So one other injury that we kind of touched on was Brandon Jennings is out up to 9 months, maybe longer, with a torn Achilles. Johnny, do you think that the Pistons can still make the playoffs without him?
Yeah, I think it's still possible, but I think it's unlikely. They've been playing, you know, ever since they got rid of Josh Smith, they've been playing very well, especially him, actually. If you look at, like, the with and without Josh Smith stats for Brandon Jennings, they're like, very different. So I think losing him is a huge loss. I think they have maybe DJ Augustine as their backup point guard, and he was really good in Chicago, but he's kind of not been the same player in Detroit. So there were rumors of, you know, maybe acquiring Pablo Prigioni from the Knicks, which I'm not sure how much that's going to help you in terms of like a playoff push. But yeah, I mean, they're 2 games out right now of the 8th seed, and you know they're playing okay right now. But yeah, I see Charlotte. Charlotte's been playing very well of late. So, and then Miami, the big guy they have, actually Hassan Whiteside, seems like a huge beast. Actually, he had 12 blocks today, so that can give some new life to Miami. So I think those 2 teams, you know, they're slotted at the 7, 8 seeds right now. So I think those teams might stay at those spots. To be honest, Brooklyn isn't that great, and then you know you still have like 2 or 3 other teams that are in contention. But yeah, overall, I think this injury it hurts Detroit and their chances of making the playoffs. But I guess I wouldn't be too surprised because, you know, it's the East and, you know, they're still just a few games back. So, yeah. What do you think, Rahul?
Well, just because it's the East, I think it's still possible. But if I had to put, like, money on it, I would say that they're not going to make the playoffs now. Just because Charlotte looks pretty 10 games. And then, yeah, Miami, Hassan Whiteside had a triple-double today in 23 minutes of play. He had 12 blocks today, or 11 blocks today. That's crazy. That's and he's had other big games too, so it's not like this is completely out of the blue, but I think he's definitely a nice piece for them. And Dwayne Wade's starting to look all right. Bosh is, you know, he's not as good as I thought he'd be this year, but he's still very solid. And then you know what you're going to get from guys like Dang, even Mario Chalmers, you know. So if I had to guess that 7-8 seed, I would stick with how it is right now with Miami and Charlotte, with Detroit probably ending as the 9 seed. And I don't even know if it would be different with Jennings as their point. I think it'd still be tough. It'd be a 3-team fight for 2 spots. So yeah, that's my take. So we'll see what happens.
I guess speaking of the Hornets, actually news today. I guess we can just touch upon this just a little bit briefly. But there was possible trade talks, according to Yahoo, involving the Nets and the Hornets. And so I think the trade would be like Lance Stevenson, Marvin Williams, and Gerald Henderson, all for Joe Johnson. So that could shake up, I guess, the playoff picture like the last few seeds in the East. Kurt, do you have any quick thoughts on that? Just how you think it would impact those two teams and their playoff push?
Well, if Charlotte thinks that a 33, maybe 34-year-old Joe Johnson is the answer to making a run in the playoffs for that team, I think they'd be sorely mistaken. They've actually been playing pretty well recently, 8-2 in their last 10. So I don't really understand why they need to shake it up right now. But if I was Brooklyn, I would certainly love the trade. They don't really have a whole lot going for them, and they could certainly use some talent back for their old overpaid players, but I don't really get it at all, I guess. So
I think I might understand the reasoning behind the trade for both teams. Is it's the two main guys, Lance Stevenson on a whole, because I'd say he's struggled this year, and I think it's a pretty fair statement. And then Joe Johnson, he's in a bad situation. I think this is more of a change of scenery type trade, and both teams are kind of hoping that bringing in these new guys to a new city will help them get jump started a little bit. And Joe Johnson, yeah, I think he's getting up there in age, but I think he's a pretty good player. People, I think, look down on him because his contract is huge and he's not deserving of a max contract. But he's still a good player, so maybe it's a better fit for both teams, and that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, since we just talked about Joe Johnson, hoping this year doesn't happen again, but last year somehow he was elected as an Eastern Conference All-Star, which is that was interesting.
Yeah.
Recently, the All-Star starters came out with the East. Or for the East, we have Kyle Lowry, John Wall, LeBron, Carmelo, Pau Gasol. In the West, we have Steph Curry, Kobe, who, that remains to be seen whether or not he'll be participating or not. Blake Griffin, DeBrow, and Marc Gasol. So, Johnny, if you had to fill out the reserves we'll start with the East, and then you can hit the West. Who would you fill out with the remaining 7 roster spots?
Yeah, so quick plug for my article. I actually wrote an article reacting to those starters, so check that out on our site. I had some opinions on who should have made it instead of those guys, but yeah, just to I guess fill up those reserves, 7 slots for both the East and West. So my East, I think the Hawks got to be represented for sure. So I have Jeff Teague, I have Paul Millsap, and I have Kyle Korver making it from the Hawks. And then Al Horford, I guess, could be plugged either for he's got the similar stats and everything as Millsap, so I think he's worthy of consideration as well. But I also put in Kyrie in the Cavs. And then 2 Heat players, Bosh and Wade, and then to fill it out, Jimmy Butler. So those are my East reserves. And then I guess moving on to the West, obviously James Harden. I think he'll take Kobe's spot in that starting lineup. But and then some point guards. Obviously CP3. He's kind of flown on the radar. But and then Dame, Lillard, and then Russ and KD from OKC, and then finally 2 bigs in Duncan and Aldridge. So, in those reserves, obviously in the West especially, you have some kind of guys who you might seem like should be in and probably are deserving of, but there's only so many slots. Like you have, for instance, Dirk and, Dwight Howard, who probably will make it, but, there's some bigs and point guards that will be left out of this discussion. But, yeah, I guess, Rahul, do you have any other guys that you think are worthy of reserves in either the East or the West?
Well, one thing I want to say is kind of funny. I was reading this story. It was about Kyle Lowry. He kind of pulled ahead of Kyrie Irving for that second guard spot at the very end. And I don't know if you saw this, but I think Justin Bieber, who's Canadian, he sent out a tweet. He sent out a tweet saying that people should vote for Kyle Lowry. So, of course, all these Justin Bieber fans, these believers, voted for Kyle Lowry. And that put Lowry ahead of Kyrie Irving at the end. So Kyrie Irving had a clause, I think it's the Derrick Rose clause, that if he made the All-Star game as a starter, he would make $7 million. So if you think about it, Justin Bieber cost Kyrie Irving $7 million. So think about that a little bit tonight, if you need to hate Bieber a little bit more. As far as your names, I think I agree with most of what you said. Did you see a Duncan in the West?
I did.
Yeah. The only person, I don't know who you'd sub him out for, but I think Klay Thompson should be in the West.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. Yeah, I would probably sub him in for maybe one of those point guards.
Yeah, maybe for one of those point guards, yeah. But like Chris Paul, I think people just kind of throw him in there because he's Chris Paul, but I'm just a Chris Paul hater. So I would find a way to throw in Klay Thompson. But other than that, I pretty much agree with what you said. Kurt, I don't know if you have anything that is different for you as far as the reserve stuff.
Just it's pretty much the same as Johnny's. With the Hawks being the best team in the East, they definitely need some representation. I also had Teague and Millsap. I did not have Korver. I guess just for the spirit of the All-Star game, I don't really see him fitting in well. Not saying he's not deserving of the title, but it's kind of like a high-flying, action-packed game, and all he does is run around off screens and shoot threes. And though he has dunked apparently recently twice, which is a big deal, even though he's like 6'7", so like in reality that shouldn't be surprising at all. But I don't remember ever seeing Matt Bonner or Steve Novak dunk, so I guess for the white shooters off the screen is the big deal. But my only difference is I dropped Korver and I had Al Jefferson in. Yeah. I don't feel terribly great about, but just for the sake of size on the East, Bosch, I had Bosch, and then Millsap, but I think they could just maybe use a little extra size. It's not so heavily loaded with guards.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I just think Kurt said something about Al Jefferson, and I probably would have put Valanciunas over him, or maybe even Gortat. Al Jefferson. Yeah, the Polish hand. Those two have the two foreign players of like elite teams in the East. So yeah, I would probably recognize them over maybe Al Jefferson. But Al Jefferson's having a solid year for a Charlotte team that has struggled, I guess. So I guess I don't have like a huge problem with that, but I would put like maybe one of those guys over him.
Okay.
What?
Yeah,
realized that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just realized that we actually, between our lists, we don't have any. We only have the one Toronto Raptor, which is surprising, but I guess some other ones. So I kind of Valanciunas, he's definitely having a good year. That's a good name. Two other guys I thought about, actually both on the Magic, with Tobias Harris and Nikola Vucevic. Probably more so Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
Most people don't really know who he is, so probably why he didn't get any love at all for the voting from the fans. And quickly, just to cover the West, I pretty much have the same thing as Johnny again. I didn't have Duncan. I replaced him with Dwight Howard. I did have Klay Thompson and LaMarcus Aldridge and Lillard. Those two, I feel like they have to be there. And the big difference, I think, is actually kind of what Rahul said, with Chris Paul automatically being an all-star, kind of automatically being all-defensive, kind of like all-defensive team, I mean. Just kind of has a reputation. I mean, he's a good player, but he just kind of automatically gets accolades, I feel like, regardless of, how well his team's doing. And just because Memphis Grizzlies are second right now, and they hardly get any love at all, I have Mike Conley as one of the backup guards instead of Chris Paul. But that's there's a couple differences between our rosters. Rahul, anything to add?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
As far as like the starters go and the All-Star game in general, how much do you guys think that a team's record should have to do with whether a person's selected as an All-Star? Because I'm looking through these rosters, and almost every player on here plays for a pretty good team, except for Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony, their team's doing terrible. He's sad a few games. Do you think that's – obviously Carmelo is a great player. Do you think the fact that his team sucks and that he's set a little bit is grounds for him not to be a starter or even an all-star? What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting point. There was an article that had some comments from Mark Cuban about how the All-Star Game voting is kind of a joke. There really hasn't been a great turnout from the fans. I honestly have no idea how you even vote. Some sort of hashtag on Twitter, I guess. I know you can't vote in stadium, which is weird because you definitely can for baseball. So, even something like that would certainly help at least get people more interested in voting. Yeah. But, I think I agree. It's basketball, a 5-on-5 game. One player really can make all the difference. It's a little different in football when you have 22 moving parts on the court, and basketball, obviously, there's only 10. So, and with Carmelo, especially with the injuries, I don't understand exactly what the voters were doing there. Maybe they're just trying to get New York some love since they're having a terrible season. But I don't see any reason why he should be on there. And the same thing goes for Kobe. Not only is his team having a terrible season, but statistically, he's having an absolutely awful year. And if it was anyone outside of Kobe Bryant, taking that volume of shots at that low of a percentage, they wouldn't be in the league anymore. So I don't really get it. It's pretty interesting fan voting. I'm actually shocked that Marc Gasol made it. I'm surprised anyone knows who that is since he plays for the Grizzlies and they get hardly any media attention. But, I don't know. Johnny, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, not really. I kind of echo your thoughts on that, and I pretty much expressed that in my column that, Melo and Kobe are not deserving of the starter spot, maybe let alone an all-star selection. Yeah, I mean, you look at Melo, what has he really done? They're 7-35, I don't think he's deserving of a starting spot with that. And Kobe, obviously, we've talked about him and his inefficiency and how the Lakers are so much better without him, statistically and offensively. So, I think Cuban brings up a good point, and I think it might be something for Commissioner Silver to address in the future, possibly, of how to solve this whole voting thing and getting the right players into that starting frame. So, yeah, I guess with that, that'll do it for us as far as our main topics to cover this week. I guess upcoming on the site, we got some things rolling out. I guess the first thing is to check out. We have a new kind of weekend review segment. It's really cool. It's just a bunch of different categories and links to funnier and some like non-basketball related things that our buddy Rahul has written. So check that out. He released his first one on Saturday, and he'll actually be doing that every Saturday. So kind of like me and Kurt's preview. Be on the lookout for that each weekend. And then obviously we touched upon in the intro our podcast part 1 with our interview and our special guest. So that'll be included with this podcast recording. And then me and Kurt wrote up a preview for the next week of games. So be sure to check that out on the site. We just posted that thing a few hours ago. And then I guess looking more into the week, we have Brian Deacon, who started a Quiz segment for us last week. He just kind of looked at the history of the game last week, so he'll have his second segment actually coming out, I think, Tuesday. And then Kurt, you have your NBA moves, right? 1 to 5. What else do you have?
Oh yeah, that's actually it. I just wanted to make a quick shout out to our boy Bill Simmons. Recently, Johnny discovered an article that Bill wrote about NBA trade values. This is part 1, and he actually mentioned the phrase poo-poo platter, which incidentally is also one of our awards for our
Are you saying he plagiarized from us? Are you saying because we could do a citizen's arrest. I'm always for citizen's arrest.
Yeah, go to LA and arrest him.
Anyway, Bill,
that's what
we're gonna make another shout out to you soon. So if we see you use the word steamer in any of your upcoming posts, we got the message loud and clear that you want to join our team. We'll try to find a spot for you. There's no guarantees. We got to see exactly what you can do first. But yeah, I started dying laughing when I saw that. That Jeff told me that Bill Simmons used poo-poo platter, considering it doesn't really make any sense. I don't know. Maybe he's a big Chinese food guy, but. Anyway, yeah, big shout out to Bill. So thanks for listening and reading, Bill. We really appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, guys. Good talking to you. And everybody, thanks for listening. And we will talk to you next week.
Yep.
All righty.